The whispers of betrayal often echo louder than words. But sometimes silence is the most deafening response of all. It started with a smile, a forced one, stretched across a face that had once been full of warmth. He stood in the middle of a crowd that celebrated without him, their laughter ringing in his ears, but he felt nothing. He had given them his trust, his loyalty, his heart, and in return, they had shattered him into a million pieces. But he didn't retaliate. He didn't scream, didn't lash out, didn't seek revenge. Instead, he chose silence. And that silence became their worst nightmare. They had expected a fight. They had anticipated tears, rage, and desperate pleas. But all they received was an empty gaze and a quiet departure. He walked away without a word, without looking back. It unsettled them in ways they never imagined. They had destroyed him, or so they thought, yet he didn't even give them the satisfaction of breaking. His silence followed them like a shadow, creeping into their thoughts, gnawing at their conscience. Days turned into weeks. The guilt settled in like a ghost, haunting their every move. The loudest among them, the one who had orchestrated betrayal, found himself awake at night, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying the moment over and over again. He could still see the look in his eyes. Not anger, not sadness, just an eerie stillness that spoke volumes. That silence was suffocating. One by one, they started unraveling. Their laughter became forced, their conversations hollow. They tried to move on, to justify their actions, to tell themselves that what they did wasn't that bad. But deep down, they knew the truth. Their betrayal had marked them, and his silence had amplified their guilt until it became unbearable. He, on the other hand, found solace in his quiet. He didn't need to seek revenge because their own minds were doing the job for him. While they crumbled under the weight of their conscience, he rebuilt himself, piece by piece. He focused on his dreams, his goals, his growth. He proved that his silence wasn't weakness. It was power. Then came the day when they could no longer bear it. The orchestrator, the one who had once been so smug, finally sought him out. He wanted to apologize, to explain, to beg for forgiveness. But as he stood before him, words failed him. Because the moment he saw him, stronger, happier, untouchable, he realized something horrifying. It was too late, and that was when the screams began. Not from him, not from anyone else, but from the guilt that now lived permanently in their souls, screaming louder than any words ever could. The orchestrator's hands trembled as he stood before him, the weight of regret pressing down like a boulder. He had practiced his words, but now, face to face, he found himself speechless. The man he betrayed had moved on, had thrived, while he and the others were left drowning in their own remorse. I'm sorry, he finally choked out, his voice barely above a whisper. I never meant to. But before he could finish, he was met with the same silence that had haunted him for months. No anger, no resentment, just an unwavering gaze that cut deeper than any words ever could. It was then that he realized the man before him no longer cared. He had outgrown their betrayal. Their actions had no hold over him anymore. That was the final blow. One by one, the others followed, each seeking closure, forgiveness, anything that would ease the torment they had inflicted upon themselves. Yet all they received was the same silence, the same indifference, and that, more than anything, destroyed them. The orchestrator fell to his knees, his guilt consuming him whole. He had spent months waiting for a reckoning, expecting revenge or even hatred. But he had never anticipated this, being forgotten, being nothing more than a fading memory in the life of the person they had wronged. As he knelt there, broken and ashamed, he understood the painful truth. The one they betrayed had won, not through vengeance, not through anger, but through sheer indifference. And as he walked away for the last time, never sparing them another glance, their own guilt screamed louder than ever before, condemning them to a torment they would never escape. The silence had spoken, and it had won.